Welcome to another episode of the Mystics on a Mission show. I'm your host, Hannah, and today is a very, very special episode for me because I'm here with one of my first coaches, Ellen Ercolini. I first hired her when I was in the very beginning stages of my business, and she's a business strategist, but don't let that fool you. She's so much more than that. In the beginning, I had really big problems when it came to insecurity, and I wanted to be more confident, and I didn't really know what to do, but I had all these ideas about what to do in my business. And the first thing that we did was a frequency reading, and that just completely blew my mind. So I'm personally very excited to be bringing this to you. The frequency work that she does, I don't know anyone else who even does this. This is so unique. I have never seen it anywhere else. So it's really cool to be sitting here with the source of how this magic got into my life. And yeah, hi, Ellen.
Yay, thank you for having me. This is so exciting. I'm so thrilled to be here.
Me too. So I want to read your bio so everybody knows what else you're doing. Ellen Ercolini is a business strategist for creative entrepreneurs and small business owners based in Oakland, California. She is often referred to as a business visionary, and Ellen uses a combination of business acumen, creative thinking, and coaching to help clients grow their business from the inside out. She knows your business success comes down to your relationship to yourself and is on a mission to help business owners untangle their inner workings so that their businesses can get back to work. She created her frequency assessment to help you do just that. You can listen to her weekly podcast, Money Making Magic, Business Lessons with Ellen Ercolini, or check out her website for more insightful articles on how entrepreneurship is as much as a being thing as a doing thing. She's helped her clients triple their incomes, launch new programs, and most importantly, feel clear and confident about their business future. When she's not changing lives and growing businesses, she's creating her signature gem essences, launched this year under Root and Sky Shop. They're bottles of practical earth magic, similarly designed to support you from the inside out. Her favorites are the Grounding and the Entrepreneur's Elixir. Wow.
So just that.
Just that. That's you. So Ellen, for everyone who doesn't know you, can you tell us a little bit about your story and how you got here?
Yeah, that could be the whole interview right there. So I have always been a person who has loved deep and meaningful conversations. I've always been that friend for all of my friends all through my entire life. But that's not the path that I chose when I got out of college. So I ended up working for a nonprofit. I was the operations manager there, and it was a really wonderful nonprofit that does work in Latin America. So my degree is in Latin American Latino studies. I was working bilingually. I was getting paid to travel. Like, by all accounts, this was the dream. And it just didn't feel like that to me. And I am someone who can emotionally connect with like a rock. Well, obviously now because I make gem essences, but like I can connect with like anything, like so much. And I wasn't emotionally connected to this job. And I was like, this is a problem, a big problem. So I had a big emotional breakdown, which, as you probably know, breakthrough follows breakdown, and realized that I wanted to get paid to have these meaningful conversations at this level of internal sort of figuring out my shit. Processing was really where I shined. So I went to coaching school, fell in love, was like, oh yes, this is how I want to be, and became a life coach. And after a year coaching, looked around and realized I was the only one with a successful business. And I'm a good coach, and now I'm a great coach. But that first year out of coaching school, like, there were other people in my class that were better than me, but that weren't able to continue coaching because they weren't able to put the business model together. And I realized I have a natural gift for entrepreneurship, and I've been studying it nonstop since I was a little kid. Like, I've been in business for myself off and on since I was 10, and this is like my obsession, is how to make things easy for people to say yes to. I've always had a lot of really creative friends. I've always helped them get paid for their art and their creative work. So I pivoted 5, almost 6 years ago to really work exclusively with business owners to help them essentially market and grow their businesses. And so my people are ones that came into business because they got here a little sideways. They got here because they really love the work they do. They want to make a difference. They want to change the world. And then, 2 to 3 years in, they're like, wait, money, how do I grow this farther than sort of the friends and family referral network? That is sort of a natural boost that you get those first couple of years in business. And along the way, I've mentioned a couple of times, I'm obsessed with things I love to study. I'm a natural student. I started studying frequency analysis, which is based on the 9-star key, which is a very ancient astrological system, Eastern astrological system. It's actually what acupuncture is based on. So if you've ever gone into an acupuncture visit and they're like, your water is off, same system. And I loved it because it started to give me a vocabulary and an understanding to why my life is really different than a lot of my friends, and why I react to situations differently than a lot of my friends. I'm sorry, my dog is here and he's trying to burrow on my lap while this is happening. So he's settled. Okay. I'm so sorry about that little mini California earthquake, Huxley quake. So I started studying frequency, and it was amazing because it gave me this vocabulary to understand. So with frequency, there's 3 positions, and I'm sure we'll talk about this a little bit, but there's your outer, in general, how you are. There's your inner, how you are in your closest relationships. And then there is your work position, which is all about your strengths professionally, but those can also be your Achilles heels and the rest of your life. So when I learned this, it was like light bulbs went off for me. I was like, oh my gosh, this explains my whole life. And this explains my clients' lives, because often they come to me in conflict with themselves, right? And often those conflicts can be traced to their outer, like overall frequency, and their work frequency, and that sort of push-pull relationship between the two. So it's been this like iterative evolutionary journey. So like maybe 2 years ago, so I started using frequency on my clients without even telling them what I was doing, because I was so nervous about it and was like, no one will understand this. No one will believe me. Like, am I trained enough? Like I had all this inside chatter about why this couldn't work or shouldn't work, or people will think things based on the stars are like poof, poof, whatever. And then after a year of using it sort of secretly, I was convinced to use it more broadly. And now it's a big signature piece, excuse me, of my business. And it's the first thing I do with every client who walks in the door, because it's so helpful to help them really ground into who they are with their strengths, but also Achilles heels, right? And as soon as we get that really clear, it's like, this is how we stop trying to be everything to everyone, and we zero in on you, and it's that inside out approach. And as part of that journey, I've always been really drawn to using rocks and earth magic and crystals in my personal life. And that has started, I work from home, so there's this sort of fuzzy boundary between things I do for myself, and then eventually they tend to percolate into my clients' lives as well. So over the last year, I learned how to make gem essences, which are just essentially liquid crystals. Like I set them under specific lunar or solar moments to infuse the water. And then I set that water with brandy so that it's preserved, so that I can give you a bottle of like confidence or focus or grounding for whatever you need. So this is a long story, but I want you to I've been in business for myself for 6 years now in this version, and it's gone through several cycles, and I'm still anchored in the business world. Obviously, that's what I do. That's what I love, but I've certainly done other things, and I'm bringing other pieces into my business now because it's time to evolve and grow. So it's been a journey, and I'm still totally on it.
Yeah. It's really cool that you're also talking about the insecurity and needing to test things before putting them out.
Yeah, which is good business practice. That's mine came from insecurity because I live in California, where we're both very comfortable with the woo, but also very sarcastic about it. It's very much like everyone's Aunt Ethel has a thing that they do that's going to tell you the future or whatever. So I'm very sensitive to how my, mysticism and how my earth magic and spirituality come across in business, because I'm also this really practical, really grounded business strategist, right? I get in there and we talk about the nitty gritty. So for me, it was finding that balance within myself. This is where it comes down to it's an inside out job, right? If I didn't make it weird, no one else was going to make it weird. But when I made it weird, it gets weird, right? We're the one that actually broadcasts the weirdness. Mm-hmm. And testing it helped me work through that in some really practical ways, and helped me see where it was my stuff getting in the way, and really hear other people being like, oh my God, we love this. is amazing. We've never seen anything like this before. And then the third piece is like realizing all the new pieces of my work that have evolved over the last couple of years have all been new, right? Like I'm interpreting the 9-star key in this way for business analysis. Like, no, you're right. No one else is doing this. Like, I don't think anyone else can do this. This is a very unique set of education that I have that I'm putting this together. And the same with the gem essences. Like other people can make gem essences, but not like me and not like mine. And gem essences in general are sort of a newer tool that I think I'm hoping will become a bit more mainstream, but it's like this pioneer energy. And I also think that's one of the things that we forget as entrepreneurs is we got into business because we care about something or we want to make a difference. And by that like nature, we're going off the beaten path, right? And when you go off the beaten path, all of a sudden you're carving your own path. And that means you're a pioneer. And that's on one level, it's like, yeah, I'm a pioneer. This is great. There's like this like high that comes with it. But then it's also like, but there's work that goes with that too, you know, and like the hard and the uncertainty and like there is no clear path in front of you and you have to make all those decisions and do all that heavy lifting. And so testing things helps create a little bit of a path for yourself and make you feel a little bit less insecure or second guessing yourself along the way too. Because it's a big job. Like these are big jobs.
Yeah, I love what you said because Ellen and I have the same frequency, and so I get her so much. Yeah. We're both mountain frequencies, and our insecurity and worry level is always very high. Like it's just what we do. And something that I tell my clients all the time, because when you are a pioneer, when you are building something new, you have all the options, like everything's possible. And it's so easy to judge yourself through other people's eyes. And something that's always so helpful is I tell them, well, ask your clients, ask your tribe, ask what they want. Because if you think what you do is shitty, that's useless to us. We need to serve your clients. We don't serve you. We serve your clients. And if your clients feel like they're not getting what they need, if your clients feel like this is, not complete yet, it needs to ripen more, it doesn't convey what you want to give them in the right way, then that's helpful. But making assumptions about how you're being perceived by other people is really just a waste of energy.
Yeah, totally. And I think, and I want to just clarify that Mountain Earths have this insecurity is what I call our cosmic balance, because we're so capable and so powerful. And, if we didn't have this voice on our shoulder that's like, who, me? Like we would be unstoppable. So there's that. And I have to say I would say probably at this point, like 80% of my clients have Mountain Earth frequency somewhere in their frequency, because it's like, I am this beacon. They're like, oh yes. Help me figure this out, because when we figure out our own internal stuff, we are, like we talked about before, like totally unstoppable. And there's this other thing that comes up, which is both very human and it ties more, some frequencies have this more than others, which is not accepting people's positive feedback, and letting our own projections, our own insecurities, our own fear projections run the show, and making it next to impossible to hear compliments and to take them in a deep way. And earth frequencies have that because we have the confidence piece is big for us. And metals also have that because they're very like, I know what's best and you probably don't. So why would I, you know what I mean? Like, I know you don't know me well enough to know what you're saying. Like there's this whole like loop-de-loop we do in our heads, and everyone does this, right? Like I'm not saying only these frequencies are the ones that are guilty of sidestepping compliments, but I think it's a really important thing to look at, because also if you can't receive that positive feedback or medium feedback, your point is well taken. Like if your work isn't landing like it should, like you do need to iterate.
And
like
it happens. People don't want to talk about it, but sometimes it's just not good enough. Yeah.
And that's another one of those pieces too, where it's hard when your clients, when it's such a heart-centered relationship, because people don't want to talk about that, but that can often be the thing that dries up your referrals, that drives up, or dries out just the business growth there. So I think oh my gosh, Huxley's being so fussy. I'm so sorry. I'm going to change the camera a little bit and see if, dude, stop freaking out. I think getting those feedback loops makes you better. Your work honestly makes you better and grow faster. And if your work is good, it helps you understand that. And if it needs improvement, it lets you do that without making it personal and without freaking out. And So one of the tools that I assign almost all of my clients for homework these days is to write a hard copy appreciation journal. So printing out or writing out every like email compliment you get, when people text you really beautiful things, because there's something that happens when you in your own handwriting have to write it down. It like unlocks something on this cellular level from you, and it helps you take it in. And I find that that's one of the big traps. Sorry, okay, I'm going to reset the camera down so I don't have to hold it the whole time. To your business growth is like, if you don't let yourself take in that positive feedback, you're going to keep running on the same level, even though all the signs are like, hey, you've been promoted, like, hey, you've graduated, hey, you can move on. You're not letting yourself. And then it's like this weird trap because you're like, why aren't I farther? Why isn't more happening? And it's like, it's you, like you're blocking all of this wonderful feedback or medium feedback. And I think people are so afraid of getting that negative review that they don't ask.
Mm-hmm.
And I honestly think their reviews are probably better than they think, but they're so petrified of that negative review, they just totally avoid it.
Mm. That is actually, fun fact, that is one of the things that I look for in a coach. When a coach doesn't ask me for feedback as a client, when that's not built into the coaching process, it's always been off. Like none of the really good coaches that I've worked with have, skipped this part. Like they've all asked for feedback and they really wanted to know. They really wanted to know. It wasn't just, well, write me a testimonial. I want to hear how awesome it was. But they really asked, like, did you get what we agreed that we were going to create together? Is that really what you wanted? What could I do better? Did you need more resources? Because that makes me feel like they're really invested in my success. And it makes me trust them. And I feel like this is
accountability.
Really, it's just good business practice. And it's incredible to me that it's so rare. Usually I just get like a testimonial form and they want me to, blow sunshine up their ass. And oftentimes I will do that because it's really genuinely what I experience. But oftentimes I also get constructive feedback.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that to me is a little bit the difference. Like, I don't know the future, right? But if you look at the business owners that are doing that, and this is cross-platform, this isn't just coaches, this is web designers, this is graphic designers, this is copywriters, this is acupuncturists, like whoever, like if you are consistently asking for critical, like constructive feedback and positive feedback and integrating it and hearing it and moving forward, your business is going to grow faster and it's going to be built deeper and for the long haul. And so I think you can probably start to map, if we had the data, of people who were asking for that type of feedback, how many years ago, are they still in business 5-6 years from now? Or are they still in business in a similar way? Because I think it's also, the hard truth about being in business for yourself, and especially more of an online service-based business, is you can do it for 2 to 3 years. You can get through. Like you can do that. It's like, do you want to be in business for longer than that? Do you want to have this type of a business structure? And what do you want from your business structure? And starting to get comfortable having those conversations, the faster you do it, like the better it's going to be. And I just saw this great quote. God, if I could have one superpower, it would be that I could remember quotes. Like that's it. That's all I want. I don't want to be able to fly or read minds. I just want to be able to remember quotes anyway, there's this quote that's basically like, the path to the top, basically it's like, he who is the most comfortable being uncomfortable gets to the top the fastest. Except I would say she, because all my people are women. But it's something about that, like if you get comfortable having those uncomfortable conversations, it is going to move you forward. And that's in all areas of your life, not just in your business development, but businesses, I think, are really clear container to have those conversations.
I feel like the difficult part for me, and that was in the very beginning, that it takes so much humility to ask for feedback, and it takes so much humility to admit where we still need to learn and where, things aren't working, and to admit that, we want something, but it's just really hard for us to create it. And at the same time, we want to position ourselves as experts. We want to be authorities and the best in the industry, and we might have the expertise and everything to back it up, but how can we be an authority figure and an expert and at the same time very humble? And I feel like many people really model that in a beautiful way. And then I also see many people be either only humble and be like, yeah, I'm doing this, do you want it? Or, be very authoritative, and then it's more, it almost comes off more as a show to me as opposed to something that I really want to invest in.
Totally. Yeah. And I think it's that, it's hard, right? Because you want to get into business for yourself. You've likely studied or developed a skill or a talent or a tool. And to get that first couple of clients, or even first couple of years worth of clients, like, you do need to position yourself as someone who really knows what they're doing. Like, if you're like, yeah, I'm, because unless you have a tremendous amount of self-confidence of like, to be able to be like, I'm new, I'm learning, like, is that a good fit for you and your company or not? Like, there's very few people that can really pull that off in an authentic way and then be able to deliver, and it's hard to find that balance of new and growing and what you're calling humbleness, but also, branding and marketing to get those clients in the door and to do the work, which is going to be the thing that makes you better. But I think I got this compliment one time, and I've actually gotten this feedback a couple of times in my life. And this is the thing that I think people need to understand. It's like, I do a lot of presentations, I do a lot of group work. And the feedback I get is that I'm very confident and capable in front of the group. I'm able to, run the meetings or the whatever it is, facilitate really well, but I'm also really comfortable stepping back and letting other people take a chance, and try to do things and try to run parts of the meeting and have it be a little free form. And I think that's the confidence level that you need, right? To say, like, I'm doing this. This is my space. I'm creating it. And I'm comfortable to step back and let other, and whatever that metaphor is in your industry, right? Ask for feedback, try something new, be really open about where I am in a way that doesn't, because I think what happens is people are like, oh, I'm new, therefore I suck. Therefore you shouldn't pay me very much. Therefore I have to work for free. Like, it gets really messy really quickly. And it's like, no, you can be new and still be worth paying, and just maybe stepping stone your rates up over the next 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that relationship to both newness and expertise and the perceived things you need to have, and they're perceived for a reason. I mean, trying to break into a business industry is no small feat. So it's like, you want to be competitive, you want to get your foot in the door, but it can get a little bit messy in the meantime. And I have to say, that's generally where I connect with my clients, is like 2 to 3 years down the line, where they're like, what has happened? Because especially when you're growing your business, you're kind of like doing whatever it takes. And then it can get disconnected from yourself, which is something that I know you talk about a lot with your clients, right? Is like, that connection to self is actually where your entire power source is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really true. So I love that we talked a little bit about insecurity, because I would love to hear more about the challenges that came up for you as you were building your business in the past 6 years.
Oh my goodness. That's a big question. So I would say my sort of blanket statement to that is, it's a fallacy to think everybody doesn't have that. Everyone has insecurities. Everybody has doubts. I've been in enough masterminds and conversations with my peers and my clients, to have seen this growth cycle for everyone. And I am certainly no exception, because it is very personal when you're in business for yourself and your product is you, right? Like, right now, if someone hires my company, like, they're hiring me. I don't know why I put in quotations, I actually have products that aren't me, but it's like, it's very personal. And that makes it vulnerable, right? And so there's all of these stories that our brain wants to tell us. And so for me, my biggest push-pulls and the insecurities, I would say, are being a business coach. And now I call myself a strategist, because I find it gives me a much wider area to play in, which is important to me. I want to bring all of my strengths to my clients. But being a business coach and feeling like I didn't really like anyone else that was in that same industry. Being a business coach and feeling like the word business coach can be a little bit predatory and a little bit the snake eating its tail kind of a thing. And that was hard for me, because it made it hard for me to put myself out there, because I was so like, well, I don't want you to confuse me with everybody else, so I'll just like sit back and like wait for people to discover me. Like, I'm not going to push as much as everyone else is. I'm not going to be as loud as everyone else is. Cause like, I don't want you to think I'm like them. And that's the industry has changed. I feel like that was probably like 4 years ago when business coaching was a little bit of it's always been around, but it was a newer iteration that was like sweeping the internet. And that didn't do me any favors, right? To sit back and sort of wait for people to realize that I'm amazing. Like that's not a good business model. And it wasn't good for me because the more I put myself out there, the more feedback I get that's like, hey, this is great. Hey, we like what you have to say, like, hey, this is wonderful. Hey, will you come be on this podcast? Hey, will you talk about this with my audience? So it's, it only stunted my growth to be in this place of like, oh, can I do this too? Oh, and it's never, for me, the question is never like, am I good enough? It's like, I don't want to be confused for anyone else, and I don't want you to think that I'm like all those other people. So I'm going to do it really differently. And now that has settled in a very authentic place, like with my frequency work, with how I support my clients, with how I bring my whole heart and my whole life, into my business. Like that feels very authentic now. But in the beginning, it was very much a like squirrely push-pull full of just like feelings about the whole thing. And I live in the Bay Area. Like I live just down the street from Silicon Valley, and I'm a business coach, and now I'm a business strategist, right? So that's the world of startups that I live in. And I think that some of my other challenges that have shown up in that area have been like, oh, can I really do this? Because they're in Silicon Valley and this whole ecosystem here, it's like, we're talking millions of dollars, billions of dollars. We're talking huge growth trajectories and just charging $1 billion because you can type of a thing. And so, feeling that both like comparison thing of like, I could do that. Do I want to? I don't. Okay. But then like, am I good enough? Sort of seeing that in people's eyes as I explain to them that I'm a business strategist, but, I work with small creative business owners and they're like, oh, and it somehow like devalues it for them, or there's like all these like because they have their own expectations. And so just learning how to own my own impact with those things and not get caught up in the sort of gold chasing ecosystem that it feels like I live in sometimes, and being very aware for me how this shows up is I get very like, well, I don't want you to get it. Like, I don't want you to get twisted. Like, I don't want you to think that I'm like anyone else. So I will just freeze, right? I won't do anything because I don't want you to get confused. And so that has been probably easily my greatest Achilles heel in my own business growth, because it's, I've really had to work through that one, like within myself, so that I can put my work out there bigger and brighter and touch more lives. And the more I've done work on that, the like better everything has gotten. But especially those first couple of years, like those are really hard pieces for me to just kind of sort through on my own. And those are just how they show up in my life. Everyone has similar versions of this. And for me, that's why I'm so convinced that like building a business is an inside job, because we essentially create companies that are external reflections of our internal stuff, right? Like I was afraid of being compared with other people, so I didn't do anything that you could compare to them. Like, what? I mean, it made sense in my head at the time. Like now I'm on the other side of it, but it's like this very clear, oh, here are my issues. Here they are in real life, like I'm building this sort of external model of my own stuff, basically.
Yeah, and that's what makes business such an incredible spiritual healing journey, I feel, because you can't mask it. It's so apparent. It smacks you in the face. When you look at your business, you see exactly what the next healing step is.
Totally. And actually another one that's we talked about earlier, but it's so true. And this is probably more insecurity, was like, will people understand that I am a brilliant strategist and like earth magic connected woman, because I feel like when I show up, I definitely lean more towards well, I'm very grounded, right? And so it's so funny because people interpret this however they want to. Like I get emails from people that are like, I'm so glad your like spirituality and your magic practice are so like a part of your business model. Like this is amazing. Like you're like the leader we need. And then I get some people that are like, I'm so glad you're not part of that woo community and you're just going to like help me like figure this out. Like it's so funny. I'm like, I am both. And people see what they want to see. So, but I think when I was really bringing in like my frequency work, and even with my gem essences this last year, it's been this sense of like, will people get it? And will they understand that that I'm both, you know? And just because I do, and the fact that I have, you know, a magic practice and this spiritual connectedness and I do energy work for my clients doesn't take away at all from the high level, like strategy work that my brain also does. And I feel like that was one of those pieces that there was no way out but through, and how testing helped me because I started getting that positive feedback of like, yes, people can hold two things in their brains at one time about somebody. And then it's also that, and that's another, I mean, insecurity is a great word because it came down to me being able to hold those two sides of myself and say like, yes, I can do this and I can do this. And this is actually what makes me a freaking amazing person to work with, instead of silencing a part of myself that really wanted to come through and longs to support people and help people in this way. And, you know, for me, the secret for working through these things, these doubts, is always time, you know? So by giving myself that time to like, and it's like, every time I bring something new into my business, it's the same cycle. It's like, I tell 3 friends, you know, and then I tell, my clients, you know, probably that next circle of people. And then I tell some more friends, and then I have a couple communities that I'm part of and I'll tell them. And then eventually it's like, okay, now I'll launch this like bigger and more wider and more publicly. But those steps are important to me because it's like going into cold water, you know, because there's all that fear there. And if you just jump into an Arctic or like a glacier, I live in California, go to mountains a lot. If you just jump into a mountain lake, you're like, your body starts to freeze up. Right? Like it's like, and it can be too much. But if you wade in and let yourself get used to it, then you're swimming around in this gorgeous mountain lake. And it's like this beautiful, amazing experience, and your body can totally handle it. So for me, that's kind of the secret to how I work through these things, is I give myself time, but also push myself to keep going forward. And I've done this enough now where I have enough data to be like, okay, the world will not fall down. No one's going to throw tomatoes at me. Because something else that I really believe through my own work and through with my clients is like, when people really own their shit, like that's when the magic happens. Like that is, and there's something that happens with the world around you that they're like, yes, finally you find, like, you're getting it. You're getting this thing that we have all been seeing in you for such a long time. And I have not seen a single client or had a moment in my life like this where someone is not truly like deeply owning their brilliance and their work, and the world is like, boo, you know what I mean? Like, I have not seen that yet. And maybe that means that my clients aren't in front of 100 million people, but there's that power when you're really in it and owning it. The world cheers, you know, because that's what we want to see in other people, because that's what we want for ourselves.
Amen. I love what you said, because I feel like it ties into the whole asking people, stopping
totally.
to hide behind your computer and actually going and meet people, and not making assumptions about all the different parts of you that you think don't match. And when we just integrate them, it's like when we have this piece of business strategist and also Earth Mama. If you're an Earth Mama who just does it, there's no explanation needed. If you just embody it, just live it, and every little thing that you create is that.
And it's fear projection. That's all it is, you know? And it's because we're afraid of whatever your fears are. You're afraid to try, you're afraid to fail, you're afraid to be successful. I had one of my most powerful moments with my coach. I'm sorry, Huxley's being a monkey down here. Was when she was like, you are afraid of being successful. And I was like, what? No, like, I'm good with it. Like, I'm fine. And she was like, I think you're way more comfortable being in this like unsuccessful, like feast or famine, like month to month cycle than you are with like actual success and abundance. And I was like, well, let me think about that. And I went back and I cried my face off and I journaled, and I was like, yeah, because I have, way more negative assumptions with being successful than I have with being, not successful. And that was something I had to work through. And I'm like on the other side of that now. But I think everyone's fears are different. And I think it's important to realize we can be even more scared sometimes of the good things than the bad things. And I think that's why we don't ask, is that vulnerability piece. But also it's like, there's just so much stuff, Hannah. There's so much stuff wrapped up in all of this.
Yeah.
And as humans, we want to be right. So we will do whatever we need to sort of psychologically avoid the things that might make us wrong. And if our assumption is, if I'm rich, I'll lose all my friends because I'll be in this like totally different economic ecosystem, then guess what? Like you're going to do your best to make that right. Like it becomes this weird self-fulfilling prophecy because you're protecting yourself from this thing that's not true, but you think is true. And our brains are freaking powerful. Like,
yeah.
No, totally ask people. I think that's one of the biggest muscles to grow as a person, right? Like this comes up, like, I know we're talking about business here, but it's like, if you're having problems or trouble, like dating, like ask some people, like get some feedback, like try new things. This is all like, all of this logic is totally applicable to all these other parts of our lives as well.
It always amazes me how the worst thing in our lives and the worst thing that can happen is really just a thought. What we talked about the whole time during this interview are just thoughts that aren't true anyway. It's really just that they seem so intimidating.
Oh my gosh, they have such power.
Yeah.
Well, because, so here's the thing. I think most of these thoughts that we're so afraid of, they came from somewhere. Like, and generally, the more I dive into my own stuff, it's like they came from when I was too young to be able to sort out what was true and what is not, or I didn't have all the information because I was like a 7-year-old listening to a grown-up's conversation and just heard like a snippet and was like, oh, that's how it is, and like made a decision. And now I'm like, oh wait, that's totally not how it is. So I think, yes, these are just thoughts, but they're thoughts that are anchored in some moment or some awareness or some learning that has power, because we learned a lesson. We want to avoid it. We don't want to do that thing anymore. Like, no, thank you. So doing some excavation work, I think also helps release the thoughts too. Where did this come from? Is this mine? Is this true or not? Are some very simple questions that can lead to tremendous freedom, because you can start realizing like, oh, this isn't mine, or this came from this time I was 7 and listening to somebody else talk, and I don't want to be carrying this around anymore, But I think what all of those things do, like as humans, we like to be in control. We like to know what's happening. We're horrible with uncertainty. And uncertainty is like the definition of being in business for yourself. So there's this weird push-pull relationship with that as well. And so I think it's, as we untangle these thoughts and these holds that they have on us, it creates a more open landscape for uncertainty, right? Because there's more freedom. You don't actually know what's going to happen next. And understanding how to be with uncertainty is also one of those great indicators of success as a business owner as well, right? Because the stronger you are with that, the more capacity you have. And so I think that's where a lot of these things come from, is like, we don't want to be wide open. We don't want to be uncertain. We want to know. And we go back to these things and we make decisions based on them. And it can be very limiting, but in a weird way, it can make us feel safe.
Yeah. That's why it's so true when you say that running a business is an inside job. Because what I see people tell me often is, oh, well, I just don't know the strategy. But then when I talk to them, they have read they read all the business books. They've taken all the courses. They know all about tripwires. They don't know all about email funnels. They have 16 different sales page templates. And they're still not doing it. And when I ask them,
inside job,
sure strategy is the thing that's standing in your way, it's never really the strategy. It's never really that. It's so much deeper than that. And then whenever those things are being released and they, start to be a little more detached from the thoughts that are causing them pain, it's like it's just starting to flow. There's so much easier to then actually choose the strategy that is in alignment with your frequency, and that is in alignment with what works for you.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's one of those things that is just, when you get to that point, there's so much, excuse me, freedom involved, because you're like, oh, I can stop trying to do all the things and be all the things. And we see, and the thing is too, like, I love the conversations that you're having with this podcast, because it's, everyone's marketing is designed to make you think that they're great. It goes back to that whole expert thing that we talked about in the very beginning, right? Like, we are in an ecosystem of other businesses that are really intentionally omitting a big part of the narrative, because it doesn't help them land clients. It doesn't position them the way that they want to be positioned. Eventually you might get some retrospective pieces, but they're going to be really far down the line. You're certainly not going to get like, eek, I messed up and I'm in it. Oops, do you want to work with me? Like, you probably won't see that too much for a lot of reasons. And it's important to realize, like, to be discerning with what you're seeing around you, you know, because I know that one of those big consequences of that can be like, well, everyone else is doing this, I should too. Or this seems to be what's working, I should too. Or no one else is struggling and I am. What's wrong with me? And to really realize that those are just omitted parts of the narrative. Like, everybody struggles, everybody iterates, everyone has stories of the thing that they launched that nobody bought. Like, that is just like the deal. It's a question of, you know, how those conversations get held and what you learn from them. And this is also a very mountain earth frequency thing too, because we're all about learning the lessons and integrating and then moving forward. And I think that's another indicator of, you know, what is somebody, do you want to learn the lessons? Do you want to integrate? Do you want to iterate? Or do you get super mad and super sad that no one bought your stuff and you kind of walk away and you get another job or you do something else? Like, that's something else to watch out for too. Like, how do people handle it when their launches don't go as well as they wanted? That's, to me, that's character, right? And that is one of those muscles that you have to grow that really helps you keep moving your business forward and not get stuck in the hard, because there's a lot of hard here, you know, like, there's a lot of hard and there's a lot of good, but you have to get through the hard at some points. And I think that is a big piece of it.
Mm-hmm. I love it. That's such good stuff. I could talk to you for hours, but our conversation is coming to close. I would love to ask you a couple more questions.
Sure.
So, who's a person you admire, dead or alive?
I really admire Amy Poehler. Yeah. And the reasons behind that is because she's all about being kind, right? All of her stuff is about being kind and being nice to people. Even when you mess up, she talks a lot about how to apologize. She talks a lot about like personal connections and relationships. And I really love her work with Smart Girls Matter. You know, she's really doing a lot of work to raise the bar with how we talk to girls and to women and about girls and about women. And I think she is a woman who has a tremendous amount of opportunity in her life. And she's really being intentional with how, like, the impact she wants to make and what's important to her and where she's putting her energy and her effort. And I just think that's phenomenal. And she has fun when she does it. You know, she's fun. And her life is real, you know, like, she doesn't sugarcoat the things that she's gone through and experienced. And I find that very relatable. So yeah, I totally admire her.
Yeah, she's awesome. I would also love to know, what's a dream you want to realize?
Gosh, that's huge. I have so many. Can you give me a little bit more of like a container for that, like a time frame or a...
The first thing that pops into your mind. Let's just go with that. First dream that pops into your mind right now.
Oh gosh. All of them have to do with travel right now.
Oh. So if I give you you know, like a voucher or something for a free trip that would start tomorrow, where would you go?
Yeah, right. Oh gosh. It's a tie between Italy and like Cambodia. Like, I really want to do some Southeast Asia. I really want to go to Angkor Wat. I've never really been to that part of the world. I've been to Mongolia kind of randomly and loved it and want to experience more Asia, but also Southeast Asia in particular. But also Italy is calling me. Like, that's where my family's from. I want to learn to speak Italian better. I want to learn how to play the accordion and drink some wine and, you know, just live that life for a little bit. So yeah, the travel, it'd be one of those places Yeah. And I'm sure I'll go to both in my lifetime, but feeling the need to kind of go reconnect with myself and explore feels really present to me right now.
Awesome. That's so
Yeah.
cool. What's
Yeah.
a book you're currently in love with?
Oh, gracious. I am reading The Honesty Practice, which is, I did not intend to talk about this, but it's written by a really good friend of mine named Aaron Steinberg. And he's a young guy, so it's written in young guy language and accessibility and through a lot of story narrative. And it's talking about how to be honest with people. And I find it really refreshing and accessible because obviously I'm a life coach by trade. So I have a lot of skills for having hard conversations and for navigating things. And not everyone else in my life does, right? Because not everyone went to coaching school. And it's very accessible. It's so accessible. And it gives you a really clear framework for how to feel your feelings and how to be honest about them. And his thesis is really like, when you're honest, like relationships get better, like everything gets better. And it's, I'm just totally into it. I've got like 50 pages left before I finish it. And it's good. I really like it. So yeah. And that just came out a couple weeks ago.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's the best advice you've ever received?
That's really big too. I get a lot of advice and I really love it. And that circles back to, I wish I could remember quotes better.
That was my other question, and I'm not asking you that.
Yeah, that's a superpower I wish I had. I wish I could remember quotes. The best advice I've ever received, there's two pieces that immediately jump to mind. One, I honestly do not remember who told me this, but it was pretty early on in my business growth. And they said, do not apply your own financial issues to your potential clients. And that was like gold, because it's like, oh yeah, like my clients aren't me. Don't do that. Like, don't apply my own money stuff to them. So that's been huge and big and helpful. And the other one is up with, but I've found it to be scared, and not know how to get down. And my dad would always say, if you got up there, you can get out of there. And he would never come help us down. Like, we would always have to figure it out for ourselves. We would often have to collaborate with each other to get out of the tree. But this idea of like, if you climbed up there, you can get down has really stuck with me, because it's like, if you got here, you can both get out of here, but also there's something about like, if I got halfway up the tree, I can get to the top of the tree. And then I can get down. And that's really stuck with me. That's a piece of sort of life philosophy that I find very important because for me, it's like realizing your own power, because we get stuck and we get weird and we often ask for help and we don't really need it. If we gave ourselves 5 more minutes to like breathe and look around and trust ourselves, it's so much more is possible than we give ourselves credit for, because we have this like knee-jerk reaction. And if you climbed up there, you can get down is a big one.
That's a powerful metaphor.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. And I'm not saying, and there are times you really need help, but it's like, just like think about it a little bit more, and like it helps. To me, it's about like personal responsibility too.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Beautiful.
Yeah.
That was such a fun conversation. Thank you.
Oh my gosh, I loved it. I feel like I could also talk to you for like 2 more hours. I'm like, wow, that's it? Really?
Yeah, time flies.
It really does. It really does. Well, thank you so much for having me. This was fantastic.
Thank you for having been on the show, Ellen. And everybody else, get over to the show notes. I'm going to include all of the links today, ranging from the frequency work, if you want to explore that with Ellen, to her essences, to everything we talked about today. And make sure to subscribe to the show and have a wonderful week.
Bye.